To set context to this very pertinent discussion, education as a word has very, very deep meanings. Etymologically, education is a group of a few Latin words. Educere, which means to nourish, to take care. Educere, to bring forth, to to manifest. Educo, to lead. And educatum, which is the art of instructions. Authors Meena and Raghu, addressing this very holistic definition and deeply layered meaning of education, have brought out this book to every parent, to every school, in conversation with both of them. A big round of applause for this effort. Given the crowded space of educational manuals, books, what was the genesis of this book? Maybe you could go first, Meena.
Thank you, Sadhana. Hi, everybody. Yeah, the point is that this is not about content of education. Yes, the space is very crowded in terms of what should children be taught, how should they be taught it. But this is really at a more basic level, at a more fundamental level, where we are talking about, you know, the word that you use, nourishing children, bringing them up as confident people. We're not talking here about adding this, because I've been in that space too, add environmental education, add road safety education. That's not what it's about. It's what are the fundamental strengths that we have to nourish in the child so that they are able to face this very uncertain world. And you know, the subtitle of the book is VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And the world is getting increasingly that, right? I mean, it's not like the certainties that we grew up with. So children need attitudes, they need fundamentals which help them to tackle this world. And that's what we've tried to do. You know, what are these fundamental traits and how do we nourish those in the child? If Raghu would like to add.
I think Meena has fairly captured what we had in mind. But you see, I also had a slightly different background from Meena's, in the sense I was teaching in higher education space for almost 20 years before I came to the industry and then took the foundational role, where we were suddenly dealing with children, you know, in schools. From teaching in an institution like an IIM Ahmedabad, where the students with or without you will do well, will become a RBI governor or SEBI chief or whatever, suddenly found myself in the school environment where children were looking fairly lost. Suddenly you have these smartphones, there are those iPads, and there are all kinds of distractions with televisions having 200 channels and what have you. The whole meaning of what it means to be educated seems to be put upside down. It was in this context that from higher education, when we were looking at this education, our chat very often over the breakfast table or the dinner table would revolve around issues of these kinds, where we said, look, in this uncertain world, the children are not getting this, and this, which are all what form the chapters in this book. And the genesis, as Meena said.
And if I could just add, we also found that children were, I mean, for instance, children going into depression, children thinking of suicide, children taking to substance abuse. Not very common when we grew up, and we saw these increasing almost year by year through our careers as educationists.
No, or parents making children feel like a failure because the kid got only 70% marks or did not crack an IIT, as if life is the end of the world is not getting into an IIT, which makes no sense. In a long-term life like a marathon, what is a good start? In a 44-kilometer race, what is a good start? So IIT is nothing but a good start. Yes, if you start well, good for you. But if you don't start well, it's not disaster. Somebody has to keep that confidence of the child intact. And that is where we were coming from, that the children needed to be taught a lot more than what is conventionally taught as education in the schools.
In fact, untaught a lot.
I think that's the golden mean of convergence between both your experience of primary, of higher education, and really the philosophy behind the approach to the book. So, congratulations to that. Now,
Thank you.
when you look at the contents of the book, it reads with deep subtext of philosophy, nourish, care, which is why I gave that preamble to the term education. The index in itself is a very good roadmap to how the authors are going to unfold the narrative here. So, Meena, if I can come to you, if I can ask you to strike the opening notes on the content segment. The first hurdle to education, to any learning, is the plinth. Given the fact that before we come to education, before we come to learning, at the plinth level, there is a power imbalance, there is a power structure, there are bullies. And there is a very important chapter addressing this issue. So I'm intrigued, I'm sure the readers would be too, on the inclusion of this pertinent dialogue and conversation in the book.
Yeah, we talk to many children and young people, and almost all of them say they are bullied, they have been bullied, and the reasons for being bullied are myriad. I mean, you look at a child which is very confident, top of the class, you think she or he must be the bullier, but actually she or he also says, I'm bullied. I feel bullied. And the reasons are myriad. I mean, it could be if you're too smart, you're bullied. If you're not smart enough, you're bullied. If you're, very good with a teacher, of course you're bullied. But if you're not, also you are bullied. So there seems to be no reason not to bully, basically. If you're wearing a very expensive watch, you're bullied. If you're wearing a cheapo watch, you're bullied. If you didn't go to New York for your holiday, you're bullied. So we were very disturbed by this. And this is one issue at the home level. And that's why our book actually addresses parents and schools equally. At the home level, you can do a little bit about bullying, in the sense you can boost your child's confidence. You can say, let's talk about it. Are you being bullied? Maybe you can even take it up with the school. But in this particular issue, unlike many of the others, the school has to take responsibility. And we find not enough schools are at all, they just want to sweep it under the carpet. Do they have a positive, proactive approach towards bullying? Very big question mark. If you don't acknowledge this as a problem, and there's a very good international studies and approaches like Sweden, where you talk about, you have to have a whole school approach to bullying. It's not enough, you can't treat it as individual cases. It's not you being bullied, you being bullied. It is an atmosphere and an environment of bullying.
A framework.
The framework. You have to address it systemically. And, it has been done. It's not easy. First of all, the bulliers are often the well-off, the children of the powerful. So you understand why schools don't want to handle it head-on. But you can build structures and frameworks, and that's what we really hope will increasingly happen. It's just not happening adequately in India.
More part to your written word, because I think the scars of being bullied is what remain lifelong scars and a huge impediment to learning. Segueing from that, there is a very dominant undercurrent in the education system, which is competition. Your author's voice makes a strong case for cooperation over a competition. Could you just unpack that thought for us, for the future readers, for those who've already read?
Yeah, absolutely. You see, much of our life is woven around competition. It starts from nursery. You have races, who comes first, in academia, who comes first, in any sports, who's the captain. So everything is made to appear as if life is all about competing, and then the IITs and IIMs make life worse, because there's nothing but competition there. Only the top 1 percentile make it through the filter that they put there and so on. But actually, if you look at the life in the long haul, much of your success depends on cooperation. Research projects don't accomplish a thing without cooperation. NASA would not happen without cooperation. India would not have a Chandrayaan without cooperation. In fact, much of the Indian problems is because as a people, even in a housing society, we don't cooperate sufficiently. Okay? Now, that is where we really need to underscore the power of cooperation over competition. And in fact, interestingly, mathematicians like Axelrod and others have shown, using game theory, how cooperation typically wins over competition. So there is a chapter which gives this in an outline. I don't think we'll have enough time to give that narrative, but it can be proven actually using game theoretic framework that, the simplest thing is prisoner's dilemma. Go and Google it. Just look for prisoner's dilemma. You will get a hang of what I'm trying to say. If the two prisoners cooperate, they will get a lesser sentence. If they try to compete, they will get a higher sentence. So that is the summary. You can go and Google prisoner's dilemma at your own leisure. But it is a proven fact that cooperation is more powerful than competition. But our schools behave as if competition takes precedence over cooperation. And if you are running a marathon in life, but you are coached like a sprinter, you are going to fall by the wayside. And that is the point we are trying to make there.
Yeah. I mean, your book alludes to the fact that cooperation has infinite possibilities. So, linking this thought, Meena, all scientists world over, musicians, artists, all have very detailed and documented their process, accepted failures. Yet our education system does, and as a society, we frown on mistakes. So there is an entire segment where you say, learn from the mistakes. How does that paradigm shift happens? Because that is the need of the hour. All educators agree to it. How do you do that?
Very tough. But I don't think our educational system actually believes that you can learn from mistakes, or even homes. So mistakes are something to be brushed aside. Mistakes are something you get scolded for, which is why children never come and say, I made a mistake. If you make mistakes, you are a failure. There's a red mark against you. So that completely goes against the spirit of what we say. As you say, unless you make mistakes, you can't progress further. They are the steps, right? So you don't deliberately set out to be careless. You try your best, and if there's a mistake, then you have to figure out, first acknowledge it, don't get defensive about it, and these are all things that homes and schools can teach, in how they handle it. So acknowledge it, discuss it, find the reasons, why did that mistake happen, and then resolve not to make the mistake again. So if you know that you did badly in the math paper because you did not give sufficient time for practice, acknowledge it and then make a resolve. And make those resolve public, help, the usual ways in which you get buttressed in taking your decisions through. There's a very interesting story from a real life experience in this book where a teacher is giving children a calculation like 15 into 5. Or 3. And there are 3 sets of answers, one of which is right. There are some which are wrong, but the wrongs all fall into a certain pattern, where instead of saying 5 into 5, 5, put 2 there, 5 ones, add the 2. So sometimes one whole set of children forgets to add the 2. One whole set of children, says 5 5s, they forget that they write 25 and then 5 ones. If the teacher, so the response of the teacher, learn your 5 times tables. She makes the class drill the 5 times. But if you look at the pattern of mistakes, it is not that they don't know the 5 times table. They've either misunderstood the process of carryover addition. So that is what she should be emphasizing. But teachers seldom pause to say, why is this mistake happening? So even teachers have to look at mistakes, not from this child is stupid, it doesn't know the 5 times table. What have I not communicated properly that is leading to mistakes? Because mistakes are not always random. there are patterns, there are systems in when you're teaching a child. So yeah, both at home, not making mistakes seem like a disaster, but being open to discussing and learning. And I think that also parents have to do it. If the parents themselves don't accept their own mistakes, it's a disaster. So you're talking one thing and doing another. So this is as much, parents, please kind of change your behaviors and model the behaviors that you want.
Very nice to see somebody young immediately clap. So I think the words had deep resonances. Yeah. And, you know, I must at this address one thought when we were reading the book as a festival team. We were saying it is to every parent and to every school. But, you know, if there was when it goes in for a reprint, you could put another tagline, to everybody. Right? Because, so, just to conclude the segment on the index, you know, it would be remiss if we don't raise the issue, as she said, about mistakes. But on the other side, the thought extends to doing the right thing. That's a navigational compass. And normally in education, in learning, in work, you take shortcuts. Not necessarily you do the right thing. You don't know how, you don't have a compass to traverse that gray area. Just elaborate on that, Raghu.
Yeah, you see, this is almost ingrained in us in some ways. Chalta hai, you know.
Jugaad.
Jugaad or chalta hai. The whole idea of this is doing the right thing. Chalta hai will not do. For example, I used to ask students applying to IIM Ahmedabad for their MBA program, I would ask a random question during the interview. Supposing on your way to this interview, you are held up for violating a traffic light somewhere and the cop has put you on hold. And you can make out very clearly that he's expecting to be paid before he releases you. But you are getting late for the interview. What would you do? Yeah? Now, many of them, you'll be surprised, would say, sir, let me be honest. He is putting premium on honesty over doing the right thing. So he says, sir, to be honest, I'll pay 100 rupees to the cop and I'll make sure that I reach here on time. Now, this may sound very reasonable to even many of you sitting over here, but it's not doing the right thing. The right thing is you will not encourage corruption. You will not, grease palms. You should have enough faith that I'll go and explain the reason for my delay and hope that I'll be decent enough to accept that delay. That is doing the right thing. It may be that I turn out to be an SOB and I penalize you. But if you don't pay a cost, what is the value? What is the value of a value if you're not willing to pay a price? Right? That's why doing the right thing is important. Doing the right thing is important because there is a lot of yourself that depends on it. And if at 21, my point was, if at 21 a student was practical to say, I will grease the palm of a cop, by the time he's 30, he'll be good for nothing. He'll be a purely corrupt round body. So that's the point of doing the right thing. And we have to teach it, as Meena said, even in the earlier mistakes context, unless the parents live it. If the child sees the father bribing a cop because he stopped on the way, the child is not going to learn any different. So we have to live the life that we want our children to do. And I think a country more than any other country like India, which is some 135th on the corruption index ranking, I mean high up there, I think we need to worry about doing the right thing. Then the shortcuts will not happen, the jugaad will not happen, this is clean enough will not happen, this is good enough service will not happen. We will want nothing but the best and we will strive for it.
You know, so this book is so relevant because historically the Natya Shastra was written centuries back, right? So if I take an example from the arts, The Natya Shastra details the orchestral formation, which is kutupa. It actually details how many people should be a part of the ensemble, how many men, how many women, and this is centuries back. The number of instruments, the number of vocals, how they should sit. So historically, we have been followers of a good system. What happened when society changed? So books like these come in a long series of, of not guide, but definitely an inflection and a reflection point. So to conclude, before I open it to Q&A, any closing comments to schools, to parents, their educators here?
Buy the book.
I think that we've given. We have tried, I've tried to give you all a glimpse to the chapters. I hope we piqued your interest, and I do hope, as author, I've been speaking on behalf of the authors and from the Bangalore Literature Festival. I do hope you buy the book.
Thank you, Sadhana.
Yeah, I think schools have to reflect, re-reflect on their roles. NEP is a good platform. This is the time when NEP is being introduced. I think they must use it not for, superficial changes, or, you can switch subjects and you can, accumulate credits. No, I think it's a time for a very deep internal kind of introspection. Yeah. So that would be my message to schools. And parents, please model behaviors.
We have about 5 minutes for Q&A. I think I see a lot of hands going up. Do keep your question brief so that we could pack in more questions.
Lovely conversation, thank you. My question is on cooperation over competition, and I completely agree. As a leadership coach myself, you see a big roadblock in growing in your career is not technical skills, it will only take you so far, it's behavioral skills, and those are cooperation, working in teams, building relationships. And research also shows that people who go to top universities struggle with this. So I wonder what's the answer. Mark Twain very famously said, I never let my schooling interfere with my education. So I wonder if the answer is outside of school.
Read the book.
We have suggested
It addresses
in the book,
everything.
No, we have suggested in the book we should formally introduce game theory very early in schools. We underestimate our children's ability to understand these concepts. They immediately learn why it helps to be more cooperative than more competitive. And I think that's why the education system has to start building it from the beginning.
Go ahead.
And each teacher has their own teaching philosophy, which is very great. So my question is, what is the teaching philosophy that teachers must have or cannot miss holding on to in nourishing a student, and what should be a teacher's belief system of teaching?
All right. You see, you can't modulate any teaching philosophy based on individuals. Individuals will vary. Teachers are also human beings. One may be more temperamental, less temperamental, very, very short-tempered or not, more patient, less patient, and so on. And I also believe that teachers today are the most hardworking set of professionals as it goes. I've seen teachers and underpaid. No, I have observed teachers, the amount of work they do, managing one child at home is a challenge. They manage 40 on an average, take homework every day, they correct it every day, put a star and a smile on every paper every day. Then there are a million festivals and other things for which they come and put buntings and what have you, and get children to come to the stage and perform. They truly, truly work hard. So I don't want to be, again, prescriptive to the teacher as to do this or do that. That's why the book is more of a pointer to good human beings who are already doing an honest day's work. Having said that, it will help if they read. You see, unfortunately, the modern generation, I believe, even in Harvard, there was a statement last week I read, when the teachers gave an assignment to read a book and write a summary, they said, but in our schools, we don't get to ever read a book cover to cover. We are given excerpts, and that's all that we read. Now, I would imagine that our teachers have to make it a habit to read books cover to cover, because that is what would then be communicated over to the children. Their life is already very busy. It's not easy to steal time out, but when there's a will, there's a way. So I suppose teachers have to live what they're going to teach their children.
Hi, here. I have the mic here. Hi. No, I mean, yeah. So, hi, fellow educator here. I design programs for schools and education. Okay. Yes, a fellow educator here. Can I, am I, okay, fine. So, for, like, you talked about cultures of nourishment for the children. I feel like alternative systems of schooling these days have become very nourishing. But when I see the government system still, even in the policy documents of NEP, it is primarily academic based. There is no space for cultures redefining in the school system, be it in the TPD, like teacher professional development, or in the ECE parts. There are no spaces of cultural trainings for the teachers. There's that no view of perception of culture. It's only there in the alternative system, but I'm happy that it exists somewhere at least as an educator. So I'm really glad. I just hopes it repels. So what do you think on that aspect? Like, how do we bring it to, I work a lot with government schools to help them understand, yeah, culture, yeah.
Difficult, as you said, it exists in the alternatives, but alternatives seldom stand for scaling up. They lose their alternativeness in the scale up. So, you know, very intensive local efforts, maybe local NGOs working with schools, that's the only answer that I have seen to bring a sustained change. So hope and not so hopeful.
Sir, good afternoon. Myself Ibrahim Nidgundi. I'm a psychologist. That a lot of insights that we have got from your conversations that you have made. The thing is that the system which that we people are running as a education system, that of the higher as well as the elementary, after seeing the higher education system that you have came to the elementary system drawbacks, that how we are going to teach our kids in elementary. The syllabus framers and the education system, that how you told us to truth-based in the, there is a right-based society, that what we think, and there should be a lot of policy changes which needs. But as of now, we are not finding. What would you want to suggest for government?
Yeah, in fact, we have said that the education system is very slow. It has a huge inertia. So it must begin with individual schools and parents. We cannot hope for a one-shot systemic change. So let's at least begin at the enlightened school, enlightened parent level.
There's another thing. Education must have a lot of inertia. It should not be capable of being changed very easily, because if that happened, imagine every day whoever fancies the education should be, it will keep changing accordingly. So that original inertia is valid, but we have to work hard by changing our own attitude to what we mean by education, and that is what supplementary books like these try to do over and above the NEP as a policy.
One last question.
Yeah, hi Raghu and Meena. I'm in awe of educators. So my question is, how do both of you work together?
We don't work together at all. I am more the author, Meena is more the editor. So she is the boss. No, you know, I write whatever I feel like, and then we don't even talk. Then the manuscript goes to her and she chops this, that. I don't even question that. Then I rewrite, and that's how it works.
Thank you so much for being such a participative audience. Thank you, Sadhana, who really brought out facets of the book we were not thinking about. And thank you, Bangalore Lit Fest.